The journey so far has been very tough. But that is what is expected. It's been difficult because you're trying to change what is there that hasn't kept us where we are. So it's going to be difficult. But if you look at the last election, as you know, it's probably the worst election considering in this particular republic, considering the 2022 electoral law, which was meant to improve our overall election process, and the continued and consistent promises of the chairman of INEC that this is going to be the best thing that has ever happened to Nigeria and everything. And you could see it in all the editorials, in all the international newspapers from Financial Times, The Economist, Wall Street Journal, everybody, including Chatham House, where even the chairman was there. He has questioned the rating of the country. And for me in particular, it's one of sadness. 63 years after Nigerian independence, we can't conduct simple election. Talk less of any other, just election. That's what all the promises. And it's not as if we're too big or too this. The world's biggest democracy, India today, have about 900 registered voters. In their last election, 67% participated, over 600 million, which if you look at our 24 million, that's 25 times our size. Yet the infractions were less than 5%. In our own, opposite is the case. However, my appeal to Nigerians is to remain, to my obedient family, to Nigerians is to remain calm, remain prayerful for our country, Nigeria. We have no other country except this one. And we will go through all legal, peaceful means to bring a new Nigeria, where everybody will be happy and proud to say, I'm a Nigerian.
All right, I'm glad you talk about to remain prayerful and to remain calm. And the reason I say this is that some prominent Nigerians, church leaders, traditional rulers, and high net worth stakeholders are saying that though there are several infractions, the outcome of the election is the way God wants it, and it should be allowed. Others are saying, for the peace of Nigeria, remain prayerful, calm, and accept this as God's will. What do you have to say to that?
Well, you know, I'm very respectful to prominent Nigerians, especially church leaders, traditional rulers, and all that. And I remain very respectful to them. And I think they should be respected for what they represent in our society. But I disagree with them. What they're actually preaching is the problem of Nigeria. The problem of Nigeria is accepting wrongdoing, accepting what is unacceptable. That is using God's name in vain. That's not what God said. God said, do not use my name in vain. So what they're saying is not God's wish. It is not God's plan for Nigeria. So why don't we accept that the 133 million Nigerians who are poor is God's wish? Why don't we accept that 95 million Nigerians living in absolute poverty is God's wish? It is God's wish that you don't have electricity. It is God's wish that our children are kidnapped. It is God's wish that we have collapsed primary health care, leading us to be the country with the highest infant mortality. It is everything happening is God's way, not so what God says. No. God's wish is when you do the right thing. And in the end, it is not. This election was predicated and planned, and we have clear laws about the conduct of the election. If it was followed, if these results were uploaded from the booth, polling units, like they said, to the server and everything, we won't be here, we won't be talking about it. It would have been concluded in a matter of hours without anybody arguing about it. But it is not God's wish that you do the wrong thing. It is not God's wish that you go and rob a train and make money and start sharing it. It is not God's. This is what is killing the country. People come here, take public money, and then go and give it to people in the church and treasure, and they say it's God's wish, and start giving them title in the church, title in this. That is what we are fighting. That's what we want to stop. We want God's wish to be truly God's wish. And that is when we do the right things and God gives his blessing. What we are doing now is why they come. What do you tell the young ones growing up? That it's God's wish that you steal? That it's God's wish that you conduct a wrong election? So tell me the difference between those of us who are doing this and the armed robbers. What is the difference between us and the train robbers? Let's be sincere with ourselves. That's why it's God's wish that somebody came to your station and said he knows a governor who have 22 billion naira stacked, and nobody's asking about him. But we are stopping young people who are carrying computer and questioning them and calling them names. That's not God's wish. God wishes something better. What I want is God to allow us to do the right things so we can start building a better country for our children.
Whenever you listen to Peter Obi speak, one thing is always very clear: sincerity and clarity of purpose. These are qualities that immediately stand out and set him apart from most of our politicians. Obi does not speak in circles, he does not hide behind empty slogans, and he does not rely on propaganda. Instead, he speaks plainly, calmly, and directly about Nigeria's problems and how they can be solved. It is always obvious that, unlike many politicians who are desperate to grab power for personal gain, Peter Obi is genuinely focused on changing the system. His politics is not driven by entitlement or ego, but by a clear understanding that Nigeria's problems are largely self-inflicted. We are where we are today not because Nigeria lacks resources or talent, but because we have normalized failure, illegality, and incompetence. One of our biggest challenges as a country is that we have learned to accept everything. We accept corruption and call it politics. We accept injustice and call it destiny. We accept bad leadership and sometimes even say it is the will of God. Over time, this dangerous mindset has weakened our institutions and lowered our expectations. We complain daily, yet we recycle the same leaders and the same failed ideas. Peter Obi challenges this culture directly. He reminds us through facts and data that leadership is about responsibility, discipline, and service. He consistently emphasizes prudence, accountability, and productivity, values that are sadly missing in our governance today. When Obi speaks, he does not promise miracles. He talks about process, planning, and execution. That alone shows seriousness. What makes Obi even remarkable is how he responds to criticism. He does not insult his opponents or engage in abuse. Instead, he responds with facts, records, and results. This calm, issue-based approach is rare in Nigerian politics and is one of the reasons many people trust him. It shows maturity, confidence, and a deep respect for Nigerians. This is why, at this point in our national journey, Peter Obi remains the best candidate we have, not because he is perfect, but because he represents a clear break from the old order. He represents competence over chaos, ideas over insults, and service over self-interest. Now more than ever, Nigerians must look beyond party lines and personal sentiments. We must come together and support credible leadership, irrespective of the party Peter Obi chooses to contest under. Nigeria is bigger than any political party. A new Nigeria is not a fantasy. It is possible, but only if we choose sincerity over deception, competence over mediocrity, and courage over complacency. A new Nigeria is possible.